Welcome back to my ongoing coverage of the Namco Museum compilations for the PlayStation. This video covers Volume 2, which was released in Japan on February 9th, 1996, and in North America on September 30th, 1996. As I mentioned at the conclusion of my previous video, the game lineup in Volume 2 took a different direction, as the games featured in this set are more obscure than Volume 1. This set includes Super Pac-Man, Mappy, Gaplus, Xevious, Grobda, and Dragon Buster. The Japanese version featured QDQ instead of Super Pac-Man, plus Bombi was accessible via code. The museum features of Volume 2 are like its predecessor, so watch my Volume 1 video for more information. One feature that I did not mention in Volume 1 which carries over to this volume is the record book, which is found in the lounge area. This book tracks your high scores, play time, and occurrences of specific events for each game. In the same area you can view illustrations from Dragon Buster and Xevious. The dip switch screen is once again used to adjust each game's options. Every game but Dragon Buster was originally played on vertical monitors. The alternate display options that I mentioned in Volume 1 are available for the vertical-oriented games, with Super Pac-Man being the only one to utilize compressed graphics. Xevious, Gaplus, Grobda, and Mappy can have their graphics stretched out to take up more screen space. For all games except Xevious and Dragon Buster, you can display side art during play by pausing the game and pressing the directional pad. There are two types of artwork available, which is a nice way to fill in the empty space, especially for Super Pac-Man. Unfortunately, there are display issues in the horizontal mode for games such as Xevious and Grobda. The playfield for these games displays more than the 240 horizontal lines of resolution a PlayStation uses, thus portions of the playing field are not visible. This makes it possible for the player and enemies to move into and attack from the off-screen area, making these games more difficult than they should be, especially Xevious since there is more off-screen space. For Xevious, one solution is that you can reposition a screen so that your Suvalu is visible when it's at the bottom of the play area. You can do this by pausing the game and holding the circle button while using the directional pad. This can be done for all games, but Xevious benefits the most from it. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the arcade vertical and horizontal modes for Grobda and Xevious. Let's kick things off with Super Pac-Man. Released in September 1982, this is the first official follow-up to Pac-Man. Between the release of these two games, Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man Plus made their way to arcades, but neither of these titles were developed by Namco. Bally Midway, who had the license for Pac-Man games in the US, were involved with the development of these games, along with General Computer Corporation for Ms. Pac-Man. Super Pac-Man takes a different approach. While the basic elements are there, such as the maze, ghosts, and power pellets, Pac-Man now chows down on an assortment of food and other objects instead of dots. Food items increase in value with each passing round, starting at 10 points for an apple and up to 160 points for a gift box. After a certain number of items are eaten, a star appears in the middle of the screen. To the left and right of the star are items that shuffle like a slot machine. Eating the star stops the slots and you are awarded a bonus. If both slot items are the same, you receive a large bonus worth up to 5,000 points. As in Pac-Man, there's only one type of maze, but its color changes every few rounds. The ghosts behave similarly to Pac-Man, but every so often they will halt their movement for a few seconds, which can save you if you're being chased down by them. The objects you eat are in corridors with doors preventing their entry. They are unlocked by eating keys. The doors that the keys open vary with each stage. Early on, keys open doors close to the location of the key that was eaten. As you progress, keys will open doors that are far away from them, though the process cycles back to what I mentioned earlier. It's possible to run into dead ends in certain spots of the maze, so proceed with caution. Eating all keys are not required for completing a round. The super in Super Pac-Man comes from the large green super pellets you eat. Consuming one turns you into Super Pac-Man. In this enlarged form, you're invincible. The ghost sprites are stretched out when this happens to give the illusion that Pac-Man is flying over them. As Super Pac-Man, you move faster with the press of a button, and you can pass through doors without eating a key, which awards 200 points per door versus the 50 points for eating a key. Moving Super Pac-Man with the speed button can be tricky for new players due to the precision of turning corners. Your superpower is prolonged if you eat a power or another super pellet. You can rush through the early rounds in super form, but this strategy is less effective the further you progress, as the duration of the super form gradually decreases. In Super Pac-Man, you can now enter the ghost space. Why would you do that? Well, eating a power pellet turns ghosts blue no matter where they are or what form they're in. In the early rounds, I will eat a super pellet and then a power pellet. Once the eaten ghosts retreat to their base or are close to it, I will eat another power pellet and enter the base to eat them again. It's a great way to rack up points. Don't enter the base unless you are in super form. At the third round and every 4 rounds after that, you play a bonus round where you must eat all objects except the keys before the bonus timer runs out. There are no ghosts and you are always in super mode, so use that speed up button to eat everything quickly. You receive bonus points based on the remaining time. Before or after the bonus rounds, you are treated to several intermission scenes where Super Pac-Man's powers are on display. We move on to Dragon Buster. This side-scrolling hack-and-slash adventure game was released in 1984. This title was never released in US arcades, but according to a magazine article, it made its way to European arcades. You take on the role of Clovis, who is on a quest to rescue Princess Celia, who was kidnapped by a dragon. The levels are laid out on a map with branching paths taking you through areas such as graveyards, mountains, towers, and ruins. These locations consist of corridors which are straightforward to navigate early on, but become maze-like the further you progress. You will climb vines to reach some spots and double jump to reach higher platforms. You can also run quickly to navigate through long passageways. Different tracks are played for these locations, which wasn't common in arcade games at the time. You fight an assortment of creatures such as snakes, bats, will-o-wisps, golems, slugs, slime, and more. If you're idle for too long, a cave shark appears and latches onto you, draining your health, though it can be defeated. Your sword is used to swing, stab, or thrust, the last of which inflicts double damage. Dragon Buster utilizes a vitality meter, which was a novel concept in side-scrollers at the time. Contact by an enemy or projectile depletes Clovis's health and knocks him back, which could land him on another enemy or projectile, inflicting further damage. Avoid this ping-pong predicament if possible. Each section has rooms that you're locked in where you fight mini-bosses such as a sword-swinging skeleton, a wizard that shoots fire and summons swords to attack you, an axe-wielding bishop, and a fire-breathing brontosaurus-like creature. You often fight them with other enemies present. When these foes are defeated, they leave items such as a jewel which boosts your score, fire magic, a blue potion which restores some vitality, a red potion which depletes your vitality, a mushroom which increases your maximum vitality, and more. For one of these rooms, defeating the mini-boss reveals a door which is the exit for that section. Try to clear as many rooms as you can to strengthen your character. Clovis can stock up on 2 types of fire magic. There's a standard fireball which shoots horizontally, damaging anything in its path except for enemies like skeletons and wizards. There's a fire ring spell encircling the player with fire, which is useful for eliminating lots of foes at once. A portion of your vitality is restored after a section is completed. At the end of each round, you enter the dragon's castle where you must slay the beast. Dragons have a vitality counter and weak points which inflict greater damage. Like the mini-bosses, other enemies join the battle. In some rounds you encounter Princess Celia after slaying the dragon, but another dragon swoops in and takes her away. You receive points for your remaining health, and it's fully restored for the start of the next round. Now we move on to Xevious, which is an overhead vertical scrolling shooter released in December of 1982. You control the Solvalu fighter ship, and it's up to you to rescue Earth from the ancient race of Xevious people who by force have arrived to reclaim the civilization they left behind prior to the Ice Age. You fly over areas such as grasslands, forests, open fields, airstrips, and oceans, which is a stark contrast to the outer space settings that were the norm during that era. Some locations have etchings of the Nazca lines. When you lose a life, play resumes at the start of the current section you're in, or the start of the next section if you progress far enough in the previous area. Forests act as a point of demarcation between sections. Gameplay-wise, Xevious does for vertical shooters what Scramble and Super Cobra did for horizontal shooters. The Solvalu fires missiles at air targets and drops bombs at ground targets. There are separate buttons for these attacks. Flying enemies often appear in clusters. There are toroids which resemble coins. They slowly head towards you but quickly turn away if you approach them. They may fire at you, so stay alert. Torkids are fighter ships that fly in quickly and stop to shoot at you and then retreat. There are Bakuras, which are mirror-like objects that are indestructible, so do your best to maneuver through them. There are objects that resemble flashing lights that rain down on you fast in large numbers. Motherships fire a barrage of shots at the Solvalu. A well-placed bomb at its core destroys it. They are preceded by cannonball-like objects that quickly home in on you. They fire plenty of shots at you as well. The mothership escapes if you take too long to destroy it. Ground targets such as radars, turrets, and tanks have fixed placements. These targets are both stationary and moving, with some of them firing at you in different patterns. Your radar flashes when it's over a target, so drop your bomb at that point. The timing is tricky for moving targets. Ground targets may appear in clusters, with a well-placed bomb drop destroying the group in one blast. Xevious features dynamic difficulty as the flying enemies you face in certain areas vary between play sessions. Their attack behavior changes as well, as they may or may not fire at you. Be ready to react to anything that comes your way. Try not to shoot at enemies from close range, or you may unexpectedly get shot down. There are hidden surprises. Dropping bombs at the right spot will reveal towers and the special flag from Rally X. Towers are worth lots of points for discovering and destroying them. The special flags award a bonus and an extra life. You'll never know where you may find them, so bombs away. Next on the menu is Grobda. This is an overhead single-screen tank shooter released in 1984. You control a tank where you must destroy other tanks in arena-style settings set in the NBA. Not the NBA featuring Magic Kareem Bird and Dr. J, but the National Battling Association. This is a spin-off to Xevious, as one of the tanks from that game appears here. Grobda is reminiscent of combat for the Atari 2600, but it plays at a much faster pace. The controls are simple. The joystick or directional pad moves your tank in 8 directions. There's a button to fire, which can be done in 16 directions, and another for a shield which protects you from enemy shots and explosions. Each round, or battling as is referred to in this game, begins with the voice command of "Get ready." All tanks are set in motion to destroy you. You must react quickly to avoid being blasted. In open areas, I activate the shield at the start of the battling. Take advantage of the block layouts to protect yourself from enemy fire. There are several types of tanks. Gray tanks have no distinguishable features, simply firing single shots at you. Orange tanks are heavily armored, requiring more firepower to defeat. Green tanks quickly move in a circular motion, firing shots that move in the same pattern. Yellow tanks are heavily armored and can use a shield. Some battlings have large tanks that fire rapid 4-way shots. Holding the attack button produces a constant stream of fire. Doing this in conjunction with rotating the directional pad can quickly wipe out enemy tanks that surround you. There's an energy gauge for your shield. This depletes when your shield is activated. When the gauge is blue, you're protected from enemy fire and tank blasts. When it's in the yellow range, only enemy shots protect you. If the gauge reaches red, then your shield is useless. Releasing the shield button slowly restores your energy gauge. Destroying an enemy tank produces a blast radius which destroys other tanks, including your own, upon contact. Tanks destroyed by the blast radius awards you additional points. Chain reaction blasts can occur if multiple tanks are within close range of each other, significantly boosting your score compared to blasting them individually. Destroyed tanks leave behind debris which slows down tanks that roll over it. There is an option to select the battling you want to start at by entering a command in the title screen, which is provided in the dip switch settings. You can start it up to battling 99. This is a good way to go head first into insurmountable odds or to get a quick butt kicking. Next up is Gaplus. This 1984 shooter is the third entry in the Galaxian Galaga series. More gameplay changes were implemented for Gaplus, which had mixed results. The biggest change is the increased range of movement of your ship. You're no longer restricted to moving left and right at the bottom of the play area. You can move in 8 directions, and the range of movement was increased to cover nearly the lower half of the screen. Music now plays throughout the stages, with the tone changing for some rounds, or parsecs as it's referred to. The tunes are repetitive, which may annoy you. The speed in which the aliens enter the screen has increased. Right from the get-go, they break from their group to swoop down at you. Even after you think all aliens have fallen into formation, more will join in, whether individually or in a group, so stay alert. Because of your increased movement area, some alien groups will enter in that range, so don't get too comfortable. Not only has their entrance speed increased, their drop and firing speed have increased as well, making this game more difficult than Galaga. If that's not enough, there are particles that split into multiple fragments when shot. They strike at you quickly, making them tough to avoid. Losing a life before all aliens have entered the screen causes the parsec to be replayed from the beginning. Queen aliens carry blaster heads. When shooting down a queen, the blaster head drops and the player collects it, offering several advantages. The most noteworthy one is a tractor beam, allowing your fighter to capture up to 6 aliens to fight alongside you, thus turning the tables on the aliens. Other blaster heads will double your firing power while increasing your movement and attack speed, some will slow down the enemies, and more. Don't shoot the queen carrying the blaster head while it's in formation. The queen may also carry ship fragments. Collecting 3 of these awards you an extra life. The bonus rounds consist of groups of aliens that slowly enter the screen. Shooting them does not destroy them, but spins them around, moving in an arc-like pattern. You can shoot them again to juggle them, but their speed increases. You can repeat this process until they're too quick for you to handle. Each time an alien is hit, an alien icon appears near the top of the screen, which begins to form words such as bonus and gaplus. Once these words are completed, different color icons appear above them. Once all aliens have left the screen, you receive bonuses based on the number of successful hits. Special bonuses are rewarded for completing a word. Having a multi-fighter is your best shot at racking up these bonuses. Saving my favorite game in Volume 2 for last is Mappy. In this 1983 platformer, you take on the role of Mappy, a police officer mouse who must recover stolen loot from the Meowkies, which they have hid in their mansions. To recover the loot, Mappy must avoid running into the Meowkies and Goro. Meowkies are small pink cats that chase after him. Their speed and numbers increase as you progress. Goro, or Namco in the Japanese version, is a large cat who moves around the mansion in a specific pattern. On his own, Mappy is helpless as he can't jump, shoot, or use his baton that is visible. After a few rounds, he moves slower than the Meowkies, but there are obstacles in the mansions that aid Mappy in avoiding and subduing the cats. Mansions consist of 6 floors with doors placed all over. Each floor has multiple platforms with trampolines placed between them in some spots, with the first floor having trampolines between each platform. Placement of the trampolines and doors change with each round, while the platform layouts change every few rounds, with some mansions gaining an extra floor in the attic. Some mansions have bells placed on the upper left and right hand sides, and some have trap floors. The mansion layouts repeat beginning in round 17. The best defense against the cats are doors. Pressing the button when Mappy is near a door opens it. Pay attention to the doorknob's position, as that indicates which direction the door opens. Opening doors or closing doors when timed right gets Mappy across platforms, but it can be used as a weapon. Cats are knocked down if they are hit by a swinging door, plus you receive 50 points. This also happens to Mappy, but if he's knocked back onto a cat, the cat is knocked back as well. There are flashing doors that emit a microwave when opened. The microwave moves across the screen, and any cats caught in the wave are swept away, and you receive a bonus based on how many cats were caught. If Goro is caught by the microwave, then the bonus is doubled. Cats that are swept away will drop from the top center of the mansion after a few seconds. Trampolines are used to bounce across floors and to ascend platforms. You can bounce off a trampoline 4 consecutive times before it breaks. It changes color each time you bounce off it. They start out green, then change to blue with the first bounce, then yellow, then red before breaking. If you fall through a broken trampoline and land on a platform below or down a hole, you lose a life. If you leap onto a platform from a trampoline before breaking, it turns back to green. If you are next to a wall when using the trampoline, you can bounce off it to shorten your jump. You cannot land on a floor or bounce off the wall while descending. You are safe from the cats if you run into them while in mid-air, but watch where you land if there's a cat on top of you, as they may land on the same platform as Mappy, costing you a life. If Mappy touches the bell, it drops straight down and stuns any cats it lands on, awarding you small bonuses. Try to lure as many cats as possible before dropping the bell. Stunned cats resume movement after a few seconds. When Mappy walks past a trap floor, a small gap opens, and any cats that fall through the gap onto the floor below are temporarily stunned, and you receive points. If Mappy falls through the gap, he loses a life. The gap fills in after a few seconds. For any mansion obstacle, Mappy does not lose a life if he touches a cat that has been stunned or knocked down. As I mentioned before, clearing each round requires Mappy to recover all the stolen loot. The loot consists of a radio, a TV, a computer, the Mona Lisa, and a safe. There are 2 of each item in every round. Point values range from 100 to 500 points in 100-point increments in the order of the items I mentioned. When you pick up an item, the second of that same item flashes. Grabbing the second of that item before picking up anything else awards a bonus multiplier starting at 2 and increasing to 6. The multiplier increases if you grab pairs of items in succession. As per the scoring table, try to grab the low point items first, but it's easier said than done the further along you go. In some mansions, loot is placed in dead ends, so take precaution when grabbing them. Also, Goro will hide behind loot for a few seconds. If you grab the item he is hiding behind, you receive a 1,000 point bonus in addition to the points you receive for that item. A hurry alarm sounds after a specific amount of time has passed during a round. When this happens, the music speeds up along with the cats, plus additional Meowkies enter the mansion. If you take too long to complete the round by that point, then the Gosenzo coin appears tracking down Mappy. Unlike the Meowkies and Goro, encountering Gosenzo while in mid-air costs you a life. There are bonus rounds where you bounce off trampolines to grab balloons while listening to a catchy tune. Try to grab them all before the song finishes playing to receive 10,000 points. Mastering the wall bounce gets you that perfect bonus nearly every time. As a bonus, here is footage I recorded from MAME of Bomb B and Cutie Q, which I previously mentioned were only in the Japanese version of Volume 2. Both games were released in 1979, combining elements of Breakout and Pinball. You control a double paddle while bouncing a ball off them to hit and light up blocks, bumpers, and targets, which increase your score, bonus counter, or bonus multiplier. The table layout is similar for both games. There was another game in this series, GB, which came out the prior year. These games originally used a spinner. Namco released a volume controller which has a spinner so that you can mimic the arcade's controls. That brings Volume 2 to a close. This set is not an easy find due to the obscurity of most of these titles. Nonetheless, I respect Namco's effort to not entirely focus on their most popular games. Some of these games inspired future titles. When I look at Dragon Buster, I think of the Wonder Boy games, particularly the Monster World sub-series. Xevious' gameplay was used in shooting series such as Alpha Mission and Twin Bee. For my favorite game, Mappy, I enjoy the fast-paced play and music, along with the complexity of the level designs plus the strategies to survive each round and to rack up high scores. Super Pac-Man is an oddball title in its series, but I like that they tried something different while maintaining the core elements of Pac-Man. I don't have much to add for Grobda and Gaplus other than that you need to have quick reflexes. Volume 2 has the same issues I mentioned in my Volume 1 video regarding load times and resetting your game. This combined with the display issues with Xevious and Grobda makes it tough to recommend as a must-own compilation for all gamers unless you're a collector or are curious about Namco's more obscure offerings. Volume 3 takes the game lineup back into familiar territory, combined with another round of titles brought over from Japan. Till next time.